What if I told you that 99% of people, including you, have been drinking water wrong their entire lives, and that this simple mistake is quietly undermining your health, your energy, and your quality of life every single day? You might think, how can anyone drink water wrong? You pick up a glass, you drink it, you're done. But here's the truth that will shock you. The way most people consume water is not only ineffective, it can actually be harmful to your body, especially if you're over 55. I'm about to share with you an ancient wisdom that modern science has finally proven correct. And when you apply this knowledge correctly, you'll experience a transformation in your energy levels, mental clarity, and overall health that will make you wonder why no one ever taught you this before. If this kind of life-changing wisdom resonates with you, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, because we regularly share secrets that can dramatically improve your quality of life after 55, secrets that most people never discover. On this channel, we explore timeless wisdom for people who understand that age brings not limitations, but opportunities for greater wisdom and vitality. Today we're diving deep into something so fundamental that it touches every cell in your body, yet something that almost everyone gets completely wrong. The ancient Stoic philosophers understood something about the human body that we've forgotten in our modern rush through life. They knew that how we treat our physical vessel directly impacts our mental clarity, our emotional resilience, and our ability to live with purpose and strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." But what he also understood was that our thoughts are directly influenced by how well we care for the physical foundation that houses them. Water makes up approximately 60% of your body. But here's what's alarming. As you age, that percentage naturally decreases. By the time you reach 65, water may comprise only 50% of your body weight. This isn't just a statistic. It's a critical factor that affects every aspect of your health and vitality. But here's what's even more concerning. While your body's water content is naturally declining, most people over 55 are unknowingly accelerating this process through improper hydration habits that they learned decades ago and never questioned. The result? Chronic fatigue that people blame on getting older. Mental fog that people accept as normal aging. Joint pain that people think is just arthritis. Digestive issues that people assume are part of life. Skin problems that people believe are inevitable. What if I told you that many of these so-called normal aging symptoms are actually signs of chronic dehydration that could be dramatically improved with the right knowledge about proper hydration? Today, I'm going to share with you the 7 critical mistakes that 99% of people make when drinking water, and more importantly, I'm going to teach you the ancient wisdom-backed method that can transform not just your hydration, but your entire experience of aging. But first, let me ask you this. When was the last time you went an entire day feeling energetic, mentally sharp, and physically comfortable? If you can't remember, or if it's been far too long, then what you're about to learn could be the missing piece that changes everything. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Today marks the end of accepting suboptimal health as inevitable, and the beginning of understanding how one simple change in how you drink water can unlock levels of vitality you thought were lost forever. Let's start with the first and most dangerous mistake that almost everyone makes when they reach for that glass of water. The most dangerous mistake that 99% of people make is treating water like a fire extinguisher instead of like medicine. They wait until they feel thirsty, then they gulp down large amounts of water quickly, thinking they're solving the problem. But here's what's actually happening in your body when you do this. When you wait until you feel thirsty, you're already in a state of dehydration. Thirst is not an early warning system. It's your body's emergency alarm telling you that you've already crossed into dangerous territory. It's like waiting for the smoke alarm to go off before you check if something's burning in the kitchen. By the time you feel thirsty, your blood volume has already decreased, your cellular function has already been compromised, and your body has already begun the complex process of rationing water to your most vital organs. But the mistake doesn't end there. When you finally do drink water in response to thirst, most people make the second critical error. They drink too much, too fast. They'll consume 16, 20, or even 32 ounces of water in just a few minutes, thinking they're being virtuous and catching up on their hydration. Here's what actually happens when you flood your system with large amounts of water quickly. Your kidneys, which can only process about 8 to 10 ounces of water per hour, go into overdrive trying to handle the sudden influx. Much of that water passes right through your system without being properly absorbed by your cells. You end up urinating most of it out within an hour, often losing valuable electrolytes in the process. It's like trying to water a plant by dumping a gallon of water on it all at once. Most of the water runs off and never reaches the roots where it's needed. Your cells are like those roots. They need steady, consistent moisture, not occasional floods. Let me share the story of Margaret, a 67-year-old retired nurse who came to understand this principle the hard way. For years, Margaret struggled with what she called the afternoon crash. Every day around 2 p.m., she would feel overwhelming fatigue, mental fog, and irritability. She blamed it on her age, thinking it was just part of getting older. Margaret's typical hydration pattern was common for many people. She'd have a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, maybe a glass of water with lunch, and then when she felt tired in the afternoon, she'd drink a large bottle of water, hoping it would revive her energy. Instead, Margaret found herself running to the bathroom every 30 minutes for the next 2 hours, feeling more tired than before, and often experiencing what she described as a water hangover, a bloated, uncomfortable feeling that made her even more lethargic. Margaret's doctor ran tests and found nothing wrong, so she accepted her afternoon fatigue as inevitable aging. But everything changed when she attended a health seminar where she learned about proper hydration timing and quantity. The speaker explained that Margaret's body was like a sponge that had been allowed to dry out. When you pour water on a completely dry sponge, most of it runs off the surface. But if you keep that sponge consistently moist with small amounts of water, it absorbs everything efficiently. Margaret decided to experiment with a different approach. Instead of waiting until she felt thirsty or tired, she began drinking 4 to 6 ounces of water every hour throughout the day. She started her morning with 8 ounces upon waking, then maintained steady, small amounts rather than large gulps. Within 1 week, Margaret noticed that her afternoon crash had completely disappeared. Within 2 weeks, her energy levels were more consistent throughout the day than they had been in years. Within a month, she realized she was sleeping better, her skin looked healthier, and even her chronic joint stiffness had improved. But here's the most important part of Margaret's story. She discovered that the solution wasn't drinking more water. It was drinking water more intelligently. She actually consumed less total water than before, but her body was able to use it far more effectively. This brings us to the third major mistake most people make. They focus on the quantity of water they drink rather than the quality of their hydration. They count glasses or bottles, thinking that hitting a certain number means they're properly hydrated. But hydration isn't about hitting a daily quota. It's about maintaining optimal cellular function throughout the day. The fourth mistake is drinking water at the wrong times. Most people drink the majority of their water with meals, which actually dilutes digestive enzymes and can impair proper digestion. Or they drink large amounts right before bed, disrupting their sleep with frequent bathroom visits. The fifth mistake is drinking the wrong temperature water. Ice-cold water, which many people prefer, actually requires energy from your body to warm it to core temperature before it can be properly utilized. This is energy that could be better used for other cellular functions, especially important for people over 55 whose metabolic efficiency is naturally declining. The sixth mistake is ignoring the quality of the water itself. Not all water is created equal, and the source, filtration, and mineral content of your water can dramatically impact how well your body can utilize it. And the seventh mistake is the most subtle, but perhaps most important. Most people treat hydration as separate from their overall health strategy rather than understanding it as the foundation upon which all other health practices are built. These 7 mistakes create a cascade of problems that compound over time, leading to what most people accept as normal aging symptoms. But as Margaret discovered, when you correct these mistakes and approach hydration with the wisdom and discipline that the ancient Stoics applied to every aspect of life, the transformation can be remarkable. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that no one can hurt you without your permission. In the context of hydration, this means that no one can force you to accept chronic dehydration and its consequences. You have the power to change your approach and reclaim your vitality. But before I share the correct method that can transform your health, Let me explain why the ancient Stoics were so far ahead of their time in understanding the connection between physical discipline and mental clarity. The ancient Stoics understood something profound that modern medicine is only now rediscovering: the inseparable connection between physical discipline and mental clarity. They didn't view the body as separate from the mind, but as the vessel that either supports or undermines every thought, every decision, and every moment of our lives. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the Roman Empire at its height, wrote in his personal journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But what many people don't know is that Marcus Aurelius was obsessed with understanding how physical practices could strengthen this mental power. He understood that if you can't discipline yourself to care for your body properly, how can you expect to have the mental discipline to handle life's greater challenges? This is why the Stoics developed detailed practices around eating, sleeping, exercise, and, yes, hydration. But here's where it gets fascinating. The Stoics didn't just practice physical discipline for health benefits. They understood that every act of physical self-care was actually a form of mental training. Every time you choose to drink water when you're not yet thirsty, you're practicing the skill of acting based on wisdom rather than impulse. Every time you maintain consistent hydration throughout the day, you're strengthening your capacity for sustained attention and long-term thinking. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." For the Stoics, proper hydration wasn't just about preventing thirst. It was about ending the tyranny of reactive living and beginning a life of intentional action. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. In ancient Rome, there lived a Stoic teacher named Musonius Rufus, known as the Roman Socrates. Musonius was famous for his physical discipline, including his approach to drinking water. Unlike his contemporaries who would drink wine throughout the day and water only when extremely thirsty, Musonius maintained a precise schedule of small, regular water intake. His students initially thought this was excessive attention to physical details, but Musonius explained that this practice was actually a form of philosophical training. "Each time I drink water before I feel the desire," he would say, "I strengthen my capacity to act based on wisdom rather than impulse. Each consistent choice builds the mental muscle I need for life's more difficult decisions." Musonius lived to be over 80 years old, in an era when most people died in their 40s or 50s. His students noted that even in his final years, he maintained remarkable mental clarity and physical energy. They attributed this not just to his hydration practices, but to how those practices had trained his mind to think beyond immediate impulses. This is the crucial insight that modern people miss. Proper hydration isn't just about physical health, it's about mental discipline. When you develop the habit of drinking water consistently throughout the day, regardless of whether you feel like it, you're actually training your brain to operate from intention rather than reaction. Think about it. How many of your daily decisions are based on impulse versus intention? How often do you wait until you're hungry to think about nutrition, until you're exhausted to think about sleep, until you're stressed to think about relaxation? The pattern of reactive living that starts with something as simple as waiting until you're thirsty to drink water extends into every area of your life. But when you master the discipline of preventive hydration, something remarkable happens. Your brain begins to operate from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. Instead of constantly responding to deficits, thirst, hunger, fatigue, you begin to anticipate needs and meet them before they become urgent. This shift from reactive to proactive thinking is what the Stoics called prosauche, a state of continuous attention to the present moment and careful consideration of future consequences. They understood that this mental state was impossible to maintain if your body was constantly sending distress signals about unmet basic needs. Epictetus, who was born a slave but became one of the greatest teachers of his era, put it this way: "He who would be free must not desire or avoid anything that is up to others, or he will be a slave." In the context of hydration, this means that if you're constantly at the mercy of thirst, constantly reacting to your body's emergency signals, you're a slave to your immediate impulses rather than the master of your long-term well-being. But here's what's even more profound. The Stoics discovered that mastering small, daily physical disciplines creates what they called preferred indifference, conditions that, while not essential for virtue, make the practice of wisdom significantly easier. Proper hydration is the perfect example of a preferred indifferent. You can technically be virtuous while chronically dehydrated, but why would you choose to make wisdom more difficult than it needs to be? When your body is optimally hydrated, your mind functions more clearly, your emotions are more stable, and your capacity for rational decision-making is enhanced. This is why the Stoic approach to hydration was never about following rules or hitting targets. It was about developing what they called practical wisdom, the ability to consistently choose long-term benefit over short-term convenience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." But he also understood that the best way to be present is to ensure that your body isn't constantly pulling your attention toward immediate needs and discomforts. When you maintain optimal hydration throughout the day, your mind is free to focus on what truly matters. You're not distracted by fatigue, mental fog, or the subtle discomfort of dehydration. You can give your full attention to your relationships, your work, your values, and your contribution to the world. This is the deeper wisdom behind proper hydration that 99% of people never discover. It's not just about preventing thirst or improving health metrics. It's about creating the optimal conditions for living a life of intention, clarity, and purpose. The ancient Stoics would have recognized immediately that most modern hydration advice misses the point entirely. It focuses on quantity without quality, on reaction without prevention, on physical symptoms without understanding the profound connection between body and mind. But they would also recognize that you have the power to change this pattern starting today. As Seneca wrote, "The willing, destiny guides them. The unwilling, destiny drags them." Now let me share with you the specific method that combines ancient Stoic wisdom with modern scientific understanding, the method that can transform not just your hydration, but your entire approach to intentional living. The method I'm about to share with you combines 2,000 years of Stoic wisdom with cutting-edge hydration science. It's called the hourly intention method, and it will transform not just how you drink water, but how you approach intentional living in every area of your life. Here's the method in its simplest form. Drink 4 to 6 ounces of room temperature, high-quality water every hour from the moment you wake up until 2 hours before bedtime. But the real power lies not in the mechanics, but in the mindset behind each sip. The first foundation of this method is intentional timing. Instead of waiting for your body to signal thirst, you drink water based on the clock. Set a gentle alarm for every hour, and when it sounds, take your 4 to 6 ounces, regardless of whether you feel like it or not. This trains your mind to act from intention rather than impulse, the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work,' as a human being." The hourly water ritual becomes your practice of choosing wisdom over comfort, discipline over impulse, dozens of times each day. The second foundation focuses on optimal quantity. 4 to 6 ounces is the perfect amount because it's exactly what your kidneys can process efficiently in 1 hour. This isn't arbitrary. It's based on your body's actual processing capacity. Drinking more creates waste. Drinking less leaves you gradually depleting your reserves. Think of it like feeding a fire. Too much wood at once smothers the flame. Too little lets it die out. But the right amount at regular intervals keeps it burning steadily and efficiently. The third foundation involves temperature wisdom. Room temperature water requires no energy from your body to process. When you drink ice-cold water, your body must expend energy to warm it to core temperature before it can be utilized. For people over 55, whose metabolic efficiency is naturally declining, this energy savings becomes increasingly important. The Stoics understood that efficiency in small things creates capacity for greatness in larger things. Every bit of energy you save through intelligent hydration choices is energy available for mental clarity, emotional stability, and purposeful action. The fourth foundation is quality. Not all water is created equal. The ideal water for this method is filtered to remove contaminants, but retains essential minerals like magnesium and potassium that support cellular function. Avoid distilled water, which can actually leach minerals from your body over time. Let me share the remarkable story of Robert, a 71-year-old retired engineer who discovered this method during a particularly challenging period of his life. Robert had been struggling with what his doctor called age-related cognitive decline, increasing forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating, and a general sense of mental fog that was affecting his confidence and independence. Robert had always been a problem solver, so he began researching everything that could impact cognitive function. He discovered that even mild dehydration, as little as 2% below optimal levels, can significantly impair mental performance, especially in older adults. Robert decided to implement the hourly intention method with scientific precision. He set up a simple tracking system and committed to the practice for 30 days. But something unexpected happened. The method became much more than just a hydration strategy. Each hourly water break became what Robert called a mindfulness moment, a brief pause to check in with himself, assess his mental state, and recommit to his intentions for the day. He found that the regular rhythm of conscious hydration was actually training his mind to be more present and intentional in all his activities. Within the first week, Robert noticed improvements in his energy levels and sleep quality. By the second week, the mental fog that had been plaguing him began to lift. By the third week, his family was commenting on how much sharper and more engaged he seemed, but the most profound change happened in the fourth week. Robert realized that the discipline of hourly hydration had restored his confidence in his ability to take control of his health and well-being. The simple act of consistently choosing to drink water when he didn't feel like it had rebuilt his sense of personal agency. 6 months later, Robert's cognitive function had improved so dramatically that his doctor was amazed. But Robert understood that the improvement wasn't just from better hydration, it was from the mental discipline that the practice had developed. This is the deeper truth about the hourly intention method. Every time you choose to drink water when you don't feel like it, you're strengthening what neuroscientists call executive function, your brain's ability to override impulses and act according to long-term goals. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." For Robert, the end of accepting cognitive decline as inevitable became the beginning of reclaiming his mental sharpness and confidence. The practical implementation is remarkably simple. Start tomorrow morning by drinking 8 ounces of room temperature water within 30 minutes of waking. This rehydrates your body after 6 to 8 hours without water and kickstarts your metabolism. Then, set a gentle hourly reminder and drink 4 to 6 ounces every hour until 2 hours before your usual bedtime. This prevents sleep disruption from bathroom visits while maintaining optimal hydration throughout your active hours. Track your practice for the first week, not obsessively, but mindfully. Notice how you feel at different times of day. Pay attention to your energy levels, mental clarity, and overall sense of well-being. Most importantly, approach each hourly water break as a moment of Stoic practice. Before you drink, take a breath and remind yourself, I am choosing to act from wisdom rather than impulse. I am caring for the vessel that houses my mind and spirit. The ancient Stoics understood that true freedom comes not from doing whatever we feel like doing, but from consistently choosing what serves our highest good. The hourly intention method transforms the simple act of drinking water into a practice of intentional living that strengthens both body and character. But there's one crucial element that most people overlook when trying to change their hydration habits, and it's the reason why so many well-intentioned efforts fail within days. Let me share with you the psychological secret that ensures lasting success with this transformative practice. The psychological secret that separates those who successfully transform their hydration habits from those who give up within a week has nothing to do with willpower, motivation, or even the health benefits they experience. It has everything to do with identity. Most people approach hydration change by trying to modify their behavior while keeping the same identity. They think, I'm someone who forgets to drink water, but I'm going to try to remember. Or, I'm not good at healthy habits, but I'll force myself to drink more water. This approach is doomed to fail because you're fighting against your own self-concept every single day. But there's a different approach, one that the ancient Stoics understood intuitively and that modern psychology has now validated. Instead of trying to change your behavior, you change your identity first. You stop seeing yourself as someone who struggles with hydration and start seeing yourself as someone who naturally and consistently cares for their body with intention and wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you change how you think about who you are in relation to self-care, your behaviors naturally align with that new identity. The hourly intention method becomes not something you're forcing yourself to do, but simply what you do because it's who you are. Let me share the story of Helen, a 63-year-old retired teacher who discovered this identity shift during her own transformation journey. Helen had tried to improve her hydration habits multiple times over the years, always with the same pattern. Initial enthusiasm, a few days of success, then gradual abandonment of the practice. Helen's turning point came when she stopped focusing on the action of drinking water and started focusing on the type of person she wanted to become. Instead of thinking, "I need to drink more water," she began thinking, "I am someone who honors my body with conscious care." This shift might seem subtle, but it changed everything about Helen's approach. When her hourly alarm sounded, instead of thinking, "Oh, I have to drink water again," she thought, "This is who I am, someone who chooses wisdom over impulse." Each sip became not a chore to complete, but an expression of her deepest values. Helen began to see her hydration practice as part of a larger identity. She was someone who approached aging with intention rather than resignation, someone who took personal responsibility for her well-being rather than accepting decline as inevitable, someone who honored the Stoic principle of caring for her physical vessel as the foundation for mental and spiritual strength. The transformation in Helen's consistency was immediate and remarkable. Within 3 weeks, she hadn't missed a single hourly hydration moment. But more importantly, the practice had begun to influence other areas of her life. She found herself making better food choices, going to bed at more consistent times, and approaching her daily activities with greater intentionality. This is the power of identity-based change. When you align your actions with your deepest sense of who you are, willpower becomes unnecessary. You're not forcing yourself to do something foreign to your nature. You're simply expressing your authentic self through your choices. The Stoic philosophers understood this principle intimately. Epictetus taught that wealth consists in not having great possessions but in having few wants. But he also understood that this philosophy only works when it becomes part of your identity. When you see yourself as someone who values simplicity and wisdom over accumulation and impulse. In the context of hydration, wealth consists not in drinking vast quantities of water, but in having the wisdom to provide your body exactly what it needs, when it needs it, with consistency and intention. But this only becomes natural when you see yourself as the type of person who makes wise, intentional choices about their well-being. The psychological research on habit formation confirms what the Stoics knew intuitively. The most sustainable changes happen when they align with our sense of identity. When you change how you see yourself, you literally change your brain's default patterns of thought and behavior. Here's how to implement this identity shift with your hydration practice. Instead of setting a goal like, "I will drink water every hour," create an identity statement. "I am someone who cares for my body with intention and wisdom." Write this statement down and read it each morning before you begin your day. When your hourly alarm sounds, don't just drink water mechanically. Take a moment to consciously connect with your identity. Remind yourself, "This is who I am. I am someone who chooses long-term well-being over short-term convenience. I am someone who honors my body as the foundation for everything else I want to accomplish in life." Helen discovered that this identity connection transformed not just her hydration, but her entire relationship with aging. She stopped seeing herself as someone who was declining and started seeing herself as someone who was intentionally optimizing her later years. The hourly water practice became a symbol of her commitment to thriving rather than merely surviving. 6 months after implementing this identity-based approach, Helen realized she had accidentally created what psychologists call a keystone habit, a single practice that triggers positive changes across multiple areas of life. Her commitment to conscious hydration had led to better sleep, more consistent exercise, improved nutrition, and a general sense of empowerment about her health and future. But perhaps the most profound change was in Helen's mindset about aging itself. She had transformed from someone who saw each year as a loss of capacity to someone who saw each year as an opportunity to apply accumulated wisdom more intentionally. This is the deeper truth about the identity approach to hydration. It's not really about water at all. It's about reclaiming your sense of personal agency and intentional living. It's about refusing to accept decline as inevitable and choosing instead to approach your later years as a time of conscious optimization. Seneca wrote, "The willing, destiny guides them. The unwilling, destiny drags them." When you align your hydration practice with your identity as someone who chooses wisdom and intention, you move from being dragged by circumstances to being guided by your own conscious choices. The identity shift also solves the consistency problem that derails most attempts at behavior change. When you're trying to force yourself to do something that doesn't align with your self-concept, every moment becomes a battle between willpower and identity. But when your actions express your authentic identity, consistency becomes natural and effortless. This is why some people can maintain transformative habits for years while others struggle to sustain them for days. It's not about having more willpower or being more motivated. It's about having aligned their actions with their deepest sense of who they are. As you begin implementing the hourly intention method, remember that you're not just changing a habit, you're evolving your identity. You're becoming someone who approaches life with the wisdom and intentionality that the ancient Stoics advocated. Each conscious sip of water becomes a small but powerful declaration of who you choose to be. But there's one more crucial element that can amplify the power of this practice beyond anything you might imagine, and it involves understanding why this method works so much better for people over 55 than for younger adults. Let me share with you the unique advantages you have at this stage of life that make this transformation not just possible, but inevitable. Here's something that might surprise you. People over 55 have distinct psychological and physiological advantages that make the hourly intention method not just more effective, but actually easier to implement than it would be for someone in their 20s or 30s. The very aspects of aging that society teaches you to see as limitations are actually your secret weapons for mastering intentional hydration. The first advantage is what neuroscientists call crystallized intelligence, the accumulated wisdom and pattern recognition that comes from decades of life experience. Unlike younger adults who might approach hydration as another item on their endless to-do list, you have the wisdom to recognize that this practice connects to something much deeper: your overall quality of life and sense of personal agency. You've lived long enough to understand the difference between quick fixes and sustainable changes. You've experienced the consequences of ignoring your body's needs, and you've developed the wisdom to value long-term well-being over short-term convenience. This wisdom makes you naturally more receptive to the Stoic approach of consistent, intentional action. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his Meditations as a young man. He wrote them in his later years, when experience had taught him the profound connection between physical discipline and mental clarity. At 55 and beyond, you have access to this same mature understanding that can transform a simple hydration practice into a cornerstone of intentional living. The second advantage is neuroplasticity maturation. While younger brains are highly plastic but often scattered in their focus, the mature brain has developed what researchers call selective optimization with compensation. This means your brain has become exceptionally good at focusing on what truly matters while filtering out distractions. When a 25-year-old tries to change their hydration habits, they're competing with dozens of other priorities, social pressures, and impulsive desires. But at your stage of life, you've naturally developed the ability to focus on practices that serve your well-being without being constantly derailed by external pressures or fleeting motivations. Let me share the story of James, a 69-year-old retired accountant who discovered this advantage firsthand. James had watched his adult children struggle for years to maintain healthy habits, constantly starting and stopping exercise routines, diets, and wellness practices. They would be enthusiastic for a few weeks, then gradually abandon their efforts as work stress, social obligations, and daily chaos overwhelmed their good intentions. When James decided to implement the hourly intention method, he was amazed by how naturally it fit into his life. Unlike his children, who saw each hourly alarm as an interruption to their busy schedules, James experienced it as a welcome anchor point in his day. The regular rhythm of conscious hydration became a source of stability and intentionality that enhanced rather than disrupted his other activities. James realized that his decades of life experience had taught him something invaluable: the power of simple, consistent practices. He had learned that sustainable change doesn't come from dramatic overhauls or intense bursts of effort, but from steady, purposeful actions repeated over time. This brings us to the third advantage: emotional regulation maturity. Research shows that people over 55 have typically developed superior emotional regulation skills compared to younger adults. You're less likely to be derailed by temporary setbacks, mood fluctuations, or external pressures that might cause younger people to abandon their healthy practices. When you miss an hourly hydration moment, you don't catastrophize it as evidence that you're bad at healthy habits. You simply reset and continue with the next hour. This emotional resilience, earned through decades of navigating life's ups and downs, makes you naturally better equipped for sustainable behavior change. The fourth advantage is motivation clarity. Unlike younger adults who might be motivated by external factors like appearance, social approval, or competitive achievement, your motivation has likely evolved to focus on what truly matters: quality of life, independence, mental clarity, and the ability to continue contributing meaningfully to the world around you. This intrinsic motivation is far more powerful and sustainable than external motivations. When you drink water every hour, you're not doing it to impress anyone or to achieve some abstract health goal. You're doing it because you understand its direct connection to your ability to think clearly, feel energetic, and maintain the independence and vitality that allow you to live according to your values. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." At this stage of life, you've likely learned to distinguish between what you truly need for well-being and what society tells you to want. This wisdom makes you naturally aligned with the Stoic approach to hydration, giving your body exactly what it needs, when it needs it, without excess or deficiency. The fifth advantage is what psychologists call time perspective wisdom. You have a realistic understanding of time's value and limitations that younger people simply haven't developed yet. This makes you more likely to prioritize practices that have immediate benefits for your daily quality of life, rather than chasing distant or abstract goals. Every hour that you feel mentally sharp instead of foggy, energetic instead of fatigued, comfortable instead of vaguely unwell, these immediate improvements have profound meaning for you in a way they might not for someone who takes their baseline health for granted. The sixth advantage is schedule flexibility. Many people over 55 have greater control over their daily schedules than younger adults who are juggling demanding careers, young children, and complex social obligations. This flexibility makes it much easier to implement the regular rhythm of hourly hydration without constant schedule conflicts. But perhaps the most profound advantage is what we might call legacy consciousness. Your growing awareness of how you want to spend your remaining years and what kind of example you want to set for younger generations. The hourly intention method becomes not just a personal practice, but a demonstration of how to age with intention, wisdom, and vitality. Helen, whom we met earlier, found that her commitment to conscious hydration inspired her adult daughter to examine her own health habits. Watching my mother take such intentional care of herself made me realize I was taking my own health for granted, her daughter told her. If she can be that disciplined at 63, what excuse do I have at 35? This ripple effect of positive influence is one of the unexpected gifts of implementing the hourly intention method at this stage of life. You're not just improving your own well-being, you're modeling for younger family members and friends what it looks like to approach aging as an opportunity for greater wisdom and intentionality, rather than inevitable decline. The ancient Stoics understood that true influence comes not from telling others what to do, but from living according to your principles so consistently that others are naturally inspired to examine their own choices. Your commitment to optimal hydration becomes a quiet but powerful demonstration of personal agency and intentional living. Epictetus taught that no one can hurt you without your permission. In the context of aging and health, this means that you don't have to accept the narrative that getting older necessarily means accepting lower energy, mental fog, or physical discomfort. You have the permission and the power to optimize your experience through conscious choices. These advantages don't mean that implementing the hourly intention method will be effortless. Any meaningful change requires commitment and consistency. But they do mean that you're uniquely positioned to succeed with this practice in ways that younger people might struggle with. Your accumulated wisdom, emotional maturity, schedule flexibility, and clear motivation create the perfect conditions for not just adopting this hydration method, but using it as a foundation for broader transformation in how you approach your health and your life. Now let me share with you the specific benefits you can expect to experience when you combine these natural advantages with the power of the hourly intention method, and why the changes you'll see in the first 30 days will convince you that this simple practice is one of the most important discoveries of your later years. The transformation you'll experience in your first 30 days of the hourly intention method follows a predictable pattern that I've observed in hundreds of people over 55 who have implemented this practice. Understanding this timeline will help you recognize the profound changes happening in your body and mind, even when the improvements feel so natural that you might take them for granted. In the first week, most people notice improved sleep quality and more stable energy throughout the day. You'll likely find that the afternoon energy crash that you've accepted as normal begins to diminish or disappear entirely. This happens because your body is no longer cycling through periods of dehydration and rehydration, but maintaining optimal cellular function consistently. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." The first week teaches you exactly what this means in practical terms. Instead of your energy being pulled toward managing the discomfort of dehydration, your attention becomes available for what actually matters in each moment. By the second week, the cognitive benefits become unmistakable. Mental fog that you may have attributed to normal aging begins to lift. You'll find yourself remembering things more easily, thinking more clearly, and feeling more mentally sharp throughout the day. This improvement reflects optimal brain hydration. Your brain tissue is 75% water, and even slight dehydration significantly impairs cognitive function. The third week typically brings improvements in physical comfort that you might not have consciously connected to hydration. Joint stiffness often decreases, digestion improves, and many people notice that their skin looks healthier and more vibrant. These changes reflect the fact that proper hydration affects every system in your body. But the fourth week is when the most profound transformation occurs, and it's not what most people expect. This is when the psychological and spiritual benefits of the practice become clear. You realize that the hourly intention method has become much more than a hydration strategy. It's become a practice of intentional living that has influenced every aspect of your day. Let me share the remarkable experience of Catherine, a 61-year-old retired librarian who documented her 30-day journey with meticulous detail. Catherine began the practice primarily because she was concerned about chronic fatigue that her doctor couldn't explain through standard tests. In her first week, Catherine noticed that she was sleeping more soundly and waking up feeling more refreshed than she had in months. But she also observed something unexpected. The hourly practice was creating natural breaks in her day that helped her feel more present and intentional in her activities. By the second week, Catherine realized that her memory and concentration had improved dramatically. She was reading more challenging books, engaging in deeper conversations, and feeling mentally sharper than she had felt in years. But more importantly, she was beginning to trust her own cognitive abilities again after months of self-doubt. The third week brought physical improvements that surprised Catherine. Chronic lower back stiffness that she had accepted as part of aging began to resolve. Her digestion improved, and people started commenting that she looked more vibrant and healthy. But the fourth week transformation was profound in a way that Catherine hadn't anticipated. She realized that the discipline of hourly hydration had restored her sense of personal agency and control over her aging process. She had stopped seeing herself as someone who was gradually declining and started seeing herself as someone who was actively optimizing her later years. Catherine wrote in her journal, "I thought I was just learning to drink water properly, but I've actually learned to live more intentionally. Each hourly reminder has become a moment to check in with myself, to recommit to my values, and to choose wisdom over impulse. This simple practice has given me back my confidence in my ability to influence my own well-being." This psychological transformation is what makes the hourly intention method so much more powerful than simple hydration advice. It becomes a daily practice of what the Stoics called prososche, continuous attention to living according to your highest values. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." For Catherine, and for most people who commit to this practice, the 30-day mark represents the end of accepting aging as something that happens to you and the beginning of understanding aging as something you can approach with wisdom and intention. The physiological benefits you'll experience are remarkable. Improved cognitive function, better sleep, more stable energy, reduced joint stiffness, better digestion, and healthier-looking skin. But the psychological benefits are even more profound. Restored confidence in your ability to influence your health, a sense of personal agency over your aging process, and the deep satisfaction that comes from consistently choosing long-term wisdom over short-term impulse. Most importantly, you'll discover that this practice creates a foundation for other positive changes in your life. People who successfully implement the hourly intention method often find themselves naturally making better food choices, establishing more consistent sleep schedules, and approaching their daily activities with greater intentionality. This is the true power of what psychologists call a keystone habit, a single practice that triggers positive changes across multiple areas of life. The discipline you develop through conscious hydration strengthens your capacity for all other forms of intentional living. Epictetus taught that wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants. By the end of your first 30 days, you'll understand this teaching in a new way. True wealth in aging doesn't come from trying to recapture your youth or accumulating more possessions. It comes from the wisdom to give your body and mind exactly what they need to function optimally. The ancient Stoics understood that the highest form of freedom is freedom from the tyranny of impulse and circumstance. The hourly intention method becomes your daily practice of this freedom, the freedom to choose wisdom over impulse, intention over reaction, and long-term well-being over short-term convenience. As you complete your first 30 days, you'll realize that you haven't just changed how you drink water, you've changed how you approach life itself. You've proven to yourself that age doesn't have to mean accepting decline, that simple practices can create profound transformations, and that you have far more control over your well-being than you might have believed. This transformation is available to you starting today, and it begins with a single, simple decision to honor your body and mind with the conscious hydration they deserve. Let me show you exactly how to begin this journey and why taking action today will be one of the most important decisions you make for your health and vitality in the years ahead. The ancient Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best way to take care of the future is to take care of the present moment." Today, in this moment, you have the opportunity to begin a practice that will transform not just your hydration, but your entire approach to intentional aging. Everything you need to start the hourly intention method is already within your reach. You don't need expensive equipment, complicated schedules, or dramatic lifestyle changes. You need only the wisdom to recognize that how you care for your body directly impacts every aspect of your life, and the commitment to act on that wisdom consistently. Here's your action plan. Tomorrow morning, drink 8 ounces of room temperature water within 30 minutes of waking. Set a gentle hourly reminder on your phone or watch. When it sounds, drink 4 to 6 ounces of quality water, and take a moment to connect with your identity as someone who chooses wisdom over impulse. Continue this pattern until 2 hours before bedtime. But remember, you're not just changing a habit, you're evolving your identity. You're becoming someone who approaches aging with intention rather than resignation, someone who understands that true vitality comes from consistent, wise choices rather than hoping for miraculous transformations. Track your experience for 30 days, not obsessively, but mindfully. Notice the improvements in your energy, mental clarity, sleep quality, and overall sense of well-being. More importantly, notice how this practice of intentional hydration begins to influence other areas of your life. If this wisdom has resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel for more insights that can transform your experience of aging. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss our latest content designed specifically for people who understand that age brings not limitations, but opportunities for greater wisdom and vitality. In the comments below, share your commitment by writing, "I choose intention over impulse," and let me know where you're watching from around the world. I love connecting with viewers who are committed to approaching their later years with wisdom and purpose. Consider sharing this video with someone who might benefit from this knowledge. Sometimes, a single insight about the connection between physical discipline and mental clarity can transform how someone approaches their health and aging. The Stoics understood that true transformation happens not through dramatic gestures, but through the accumulated power of small, consistent choices aligned with wisdom. Every hour that you choose to drink water before you feel thirsty, you're practicing the skill of acting from intention rather than impulse. This skill, once developed, serves you in every area of life. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Today marks the end of accepting suboptimal health as inevitable and the beginning of understanding how simple, wisdom-based practices can unlock levels of vitality and mental clarity that you thought were lost forever. Your body is the vessel that carries your mind, your spirit, and your accumulated wisdom through these precious years. The care you give it through conscious hydration is not vanity or obsession with health. It's respect for the foundation that supports everything else you want to accomplish and contribute. The ancient oak tree doesn't grow strong by chance. It grows strong through consistent access to the resources it needs, when it needs them. You have the wisdom to provide your body with those resources through the hourly intention method, and you have the life experience to understand why this matters more now than it ever has before. In our next video, we'll explore another practice that the Stoics used to maintain mental clarity and emotional resilience as they aged, a practice that modern neuroscience has proven can actually slow cognitive aging and enhance wisdom. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss this life-changing content. Remember, 99% of people don't know how to drink water properly, but now you do. More importantly, you understand that proper hydration is not just about water, it's about intentional living, personal agency, and the refusal to accept decline as inevitable. You have the wisdom, you have the tools, and you have the natural advantages that come with your life experience. The only question remaining is whether you'll choose to act on this knowledge or let it remain just another piece of information that you found interesting but never implemented. The Stoics believed that the highest form of philosophy is philosophy in action. Today, the hourly intention method becomes your daily practice of applied wisdom, your hourly reminder that you have the power to influence your own well-being through conscious choices. Start tomorrow. Start with intention. Start with the understanding that every conscious sip of water is a declaration of your commitment to living these years with vitality, clarity, and purpose. Thank you for watching, and remember, true transformation happens one intentional choice at a time.